Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for the third and final part of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, first question. Accelerating a weight faster increases muscle fiber recruitment. It is true for both parts of the movement, eccentric and concentric, I believe they are called. No, when we're talking about compensatory acceleration, I'm talking about the concentric portion of the movement, right? I'm about the concentric portion of the movement. As far as the eccentric goes, it doesn't matter that much. In other words, there doesn't seem to be any real growth difference or muscle fiber recruitment difference between a 1 second negative and a 3 second negative. Oh my God, that's going to piss off all the time under tension people. All right, let me state that again. Having any control at all under a negative, like those you saw me doing right there on that press, right? Fairly fast but controlled lowering. There's no difference. There's no noticeable difference in the muscle fiber recruitment pattern. The reason for it being, you're not dealing with generating additional force. When you move a weight more quickly, you have to produce more force, right? You're moving more weight at a certain distance per microsecond. That requires more force generation, right? It's basic physics. When we study it in a lab, your muscle fiber recruitment is enhanced, right? This has been confirmed in multiple studies using different forms of equipment over the decades in different variations. It's generally understood. Moving a weight more quickly as far as moving it does that. The lowering is a different animal because you're not necessarily trying to drive the weight, right? It's not the same. So it's a little different. I can understand the confusion, but it just isn't the same thing because again you're lowering it, which does require you to generate some force, but lowering it more quickly doesn't require more force than lowering it more slowly. So again, if you look at it from that perspective, that's not how it's going to work. Now that being said, can fast negatives in the right environment produce more muscle fiber recruitment? Yes, but you're talking about very, very specific training context using things like overspeed eccentrics with bands, and you can't do that on every exercise, right? There's a limited number of exercises in which you can even physically create the environment where you can do that. So there's a hypothetical scenario that you can do that with, and some strength athletes do that. And I believe it's Louis Simmons has coined that term overspeed eccentrics. And there does seem to be something to that, but you can't do it on certain dead stop exercises, right? You can do it on bench press. If you're very careful, you could do it, I guess, on box squats. But there aren't many exercises in which you can facilitate a situation to where you can use bands to accelerate the eccentric more quickly and then reverse it, right? That's the main thing, is can you reverse it? So that's a hard environment to create. So the answer is there is a hypothetical environment where you can get more muscle fiber recruitment through creating overspeed eccentrics and reversing it. But to initiate a higher myotatic reflex on the next concentric. But again, that's an apples to oranges comparison compared to what we're talking about with everything else. So in short, the answer is no on your eccentrics. It doesn't matter the same. It doesn't have the same effect as the concentric movement. All right, next question. Hi Jason, can deadlifting maintain squatting strength for the intermediate/advanced lifter that wants to quit squatting for a while? 400 squat, 550 deadlift, and how would you program this? You remember what happened when I took 2 years off from squatting? Now, I'm not going to get into all my reasons why. There were a lot of reasons. Mainly had to do with outside interference with my training, limited training time, not being able to comfortably train in a gym due to actual legitimate risk of bodily harm and terroristic threats that I had to get law enforcement and stuff involved with. It's a long story with all this talking. Short story, I took 2 years off from squatting. Did I maintain my squat? No. I had to start back with 315 again for work sets. Now, in 6 months' time, did I go from 315 up to a 485 squat? Yes. Yes, I did. But I had to rebuild the squat. I didn't maintain the squat. Was I deadlifting heavy? Yeah. In that time frame, you guys remember I did my 500 for 7 without a belt. You guys saw me do work sets with what, 530, 540 for reps. All right. So my deadlift was higher than your 550. What happened in that 2 years' time? My squat dropped well below 400. Keeping in mind, within a year before that, I hit a 508 squat on camera. So I went from a 508 squat all the way down to 315 while doing tons of heavy deadlifting and even heavy push presses. My quads got smaller and I lost squat strength. Now, flip to the reverse scenario. Can the squat and rows and back work maintain the deadlift? Yes. I have tried that the other direction and maintained 95% of my deadlift strength the very first session back. I did that at one point while on this channel. I wanted to focus really on my squatting and my benching at a certain point, right? And I quit deadlifting for about 10 months. And the very first session I came back and deadlifted, I was hit a pull that was within 20 pounds of what I had previously pulled the 10 months before. And a few days later, I came back and deadlifted again and hit that weight for a triple. And then a week later, I beat my previous best by 10 pounds. So technically, I pretty well gained. I gained deadlift strength in that time period. I just had to relearn the movement pattern. So it's a totally different animal. It's a totally different animal. So what I find is that squatting can help maintain deadlift strength better than deadlifting can maintain squatting strength. Again, depending upon what accessory movements are there. All right, next question and last question of the week. Recently, I've started to get a bit of wrist pain in my weighted dips and overhead press. I've been doing work sets with the 145 pounds on the overhead press and 90 pounds on the dips. I've never used wraps before. Could this just be from stress on my wrist from the weight around intermediate level? Could wrapping help the problem, or should I examine other possibilities for the source of this pain? Me personally, yeah, I start getting wrist pain on the overhead press at around that weight. I personally actually don't use wrist wraps for dips of all things. I use wrist wraps for bench press. I use wrist wraps for the standing press. And yeah, I find it does help with wrist inflammation tremendously. It helps raise that hydrostatic pressure in there, creates extra stability in the wrist. And what you need to remember, we are capable of getting stronger on pressing exercises than oftentimes our wrists are really designed to handle. Meaning because of the way we have to grip weights and things, it can be problematic. Particularly with the smaller bars that we use, right? We use these little small handle things. All right, 39 millimeter, 41 millimeter, your dumbbells are the same way. It does affect the pressure in our wrists a lot. It affects it a lot. Now, I personally find that weighted dips do not cause this. Now, maybe is it because of the bigger grip on the bar and the more dispersion of the weight through the hand? Yes, absolutely. One of the things that can help early on, though, is where you place the bar over your wrist and, of course, how hard you grip it. You might be gripping the bar too loose. You might be gripping the dipping bars too loose. But generally, if you're getting it on the overhead press, I suspect that it's inflammation from the overhead press carrying over to your dip. So you're feeling it still on the dips, but it's probably your overhead pressing causing it. So we come to the question of wrist wraps. I'm a believer in wrist wraps. Now, what people need to grasp is that wrist wraps are not the same as knee wraps or elbow wraps. Those are things that help you lift extra weight by creating a place for your body to store energy and then slingshot the weight back up. And you're slingshotting the weight with compressed energy through the hardest part of the movement, right? Wraps around movable joints allow you to store energy in the wrap to use as a spring. Well, that means your muscles are not working as hard. All right, they're not working as hard. Whereas in wrist wraps, reduce pain and improve stability in the wrist, therefore letting your muscles do more work by lifting more weight without having pain and fatigue affect you, because actual pain creates its own set of fatigue that impacts recovery and affects strength, all of that in the middle of your training. So if you're getting wrist pain, you are absolutely limiting what you're doing there. And it's not a case of it cutting off the circulation like some sort of wraps do, so that it just feels number. It is also the case of it's actually reducing the compressive stress in the joint. Right? It's reducing the stress because, one, it's creating more stability. Two, it can create additional hydrostatic pressure in that joint. So it actually is a safety device in this case. And wrist wraps will help you train with a lot more volume. You'll be able to train more with wrist wraps on because of that. So yeah, I'm an advocate for those. You need to go ahead and get some. They're not that expensive. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.